Government buildings are flying at half-staff in honor of former Governor Mario Cuomo. Cuomo was 82 years old. He died last night at his New York City home from natural causes due to heart failure. His death came just hours after his son Andrew began his second term as New York's chief executive. Mario Cuomo was governor from 1983 to 1994. Funeral arrangements are pending. And Phil Bailey is here. He's going to talk about Mario Cuomo's life and times in Albany. And you had a great relationship with him because you covered him for many years.
I covered him for a long time, and he was a very likable man, Elaine. Mario Cuomo somehow looms larger here in Albany among governors of recent decades. Maybe it's because he was constantly mentioned as a presidential candidate. Maybe it's because he rarely spent a night away from the governor's mansion here in Albany. This was home for the time he was governor.
Now, we're proud of this diversity as Democrats. We're grateful for it.
Mario Cuomo was a New York story. He often spoke of his father immigrating from Italy to open a small grocery store in Queens. His oratory inspired Democrats when Ronald Reagan Republicans ruled the White House. From then on, Cuomo was mentioned as a potential president, and a last-minute decision not to run in 1991 left him disappointed.
It would be enormously ungrateful for me to talk about disappointments. I've said over and over, just being governor was more of a privilege than I ever expected to receive, and probably more of a privilege than I ever felt I deserved. It would have been nice to run for president.
Mario Cuomo arrived in Albany as a little-known Secretary of State in 1975. He lived there in the Wellington Hotel on State Street. Joe Amore's custom tailoring is across the street. Amore made the suit Cuomo wore in his famous speech to the Democratic Convention.
I voci every morning. He can go walk if you don't stop yourself up at tree. Come sta? He speaks very well Italian with me.
Cuomo's administration enacted the nation's first seatbelt laws. He furiously fought off enactment of the death penalty. Mario Cuomo was the last governor to live in Albany with his family at the governor's mansion. In the Red Room at the Capitol one Christmas Eve, I asked the governor what his best Christmas present ever was.
Andrew, December 6th.
16 years after Mario left the governor's office, Andrew Cuomo was elected. Mario lost his run for a fourth term to State Senator George Pataki in 1994, and by choice, Cuomo largely disappeared from the public eye. But Andrew said forevermore, when you walk down the street with Mario Cuomo, he was treated like a rock star. There are stories like when Mario Cuomo would sneak out of the governor's mansion without security and go play pickup basketball games at Washington Park. And Elaine, some of my best memories of Mario Cuomo happened off camera. After news conferences in his conference room in the executive chamber, he would stay and talk for a long time. He'd talk about film. He would talk about baseball. He was a very good baseball player, gave pro baseball a try. He was a minor league baseball player when he was beamed, when he was about 20 years old. He'd ask me sometimes about rugby because his son Chris was playing rugby in college.
Why do you think he didn't run for president?
It's still a mystery. There are those who say there were skeletons in his closet and they would be exposed if he ran for president. I don't believe that. New York, I think, has the most thorough and the most mean-spirited news media in the country. If there was something like that to find, I think they would have found it. I think there may be more than one answer. Family. He truly was a family man. He truly loved his family. He was also mired in a budget impasse. There wasn't a budget that year, and I think he knew it was going to be very hard to go run for president while everyone would say, you can't even get a budget in your own state. And at the same time, in a very difficult recession at the time, things were going to be happening, unraveling in New York, and it wasn't going to look good. And I think he was genuinely concerned about that.
Okay, great for your perspective.
Oh, thank you, Elaine.
Thanks, Phil. Well, now let's